a little town called Brescia. It's outside of Milano.
I've never been to Milano. I stayed in Florence for a little bit, in Rome, and down in Naples. I love Italy. Italy is wonderful. What a great country. Do you get to spend a lot of time down there?
No, as a matter of fact, I haven't been there since my parents took me out of there when we left. So it's been 30 years now, a little over 30 years.
Where do you live at in the world now?
I'm in Florida right now.
Oh my God, I live in Florida. Lived in Florida. That's a horrible place.
Oh, I know. I can't wait to get out. I've tried to get out once, but it pulled me back in.
Oh my God, what part of Florida?
Close to Tampa. It's a little place called Lithia, kind of out in the country.
Oh, gotcha. I grew up in Pasco County, a little place called Port Richey on the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh yeah, sure.
Do you know it?
I've been through there. I don't think I've ever actually stopped in there and done too much sightseeing or anything.
I've got good memories of Florida. I mean, my mom owned a canoe when I was a kid. We used to just tour around and fish all the time, and it's wonderful. At crab traps, I used to raid those as a kid and just, would feast on crab all the time. Good memories.
Yeah.
How long have you been down there?
Over 20 years. It's been a long time.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So, are you Swedish by heritage, but you were born in Italy?
Yeah, it's kind of up for debate, I suppose. A while back, I had sent off my DNA to a National Geographic's genographic program,
That
just to see.
24andMe?
No, it was a Nat Geo program, but I mean, I think
Okay.
they run like similar diagnostics and everything. And to my surprise, it had come back that I mean, I knew I was mostly Italian, so it came back that I was like 54% Italian, but I was shocked to find that I was 36% Scandinavian. So I
Oh,
did some research, and I have some family who had settled down in Lombardia. I don't know what the English name for it. I think it's Lombardy or something.
okay, Lombardy makes sense.
Yeah, but the stories are that the Vanilli tribe were asked to leave the island of Irland in order to help fight the Ostrogoths in Italy. And then there's two accounts. The Swedish say that they've always owned that island, but the Danish say that they used to own that island. So whether I'm Danish or Swedish is up for debate. But you know, it's just family heritage. I think is kind of important. You got to kind of know where you came from to know where you're going. But since
No,
I'm mostly
absolutely.
Italian, I just kind of chalk it up to that.
Totally. My family comes from a little island in the Bay of Naples, and we left at the turn of the century because the water went bad. We couldn't drink the water, so we jumped on Navy ships and we didn't even go through Ellis Island because we were illegally, immigrants.
Oh yeah, for
So
sure.
we invaded Brooklyn and the Bronx.
Right.
No, we were totally not supposed to be here. Yeah, man. Did you do genetic testing as well, or
No, like you mean like health stuff?
not health stuff, like in terms of Neanderthal or
Yeah.
anything
It
like
came back that
that?
I was like 1.1% Neanderthal, which I guess is a lot lower than the average.
Are you disappointed? Were you
No,
disappointed? No.
no, I
I
wasn't
want
even
a
surprised.
big number. I want a giant Neanderthal number.
I said the lower the better.
Oh, really?
I don't know. Why not?
I'm looking. I would like to do that 24andMe. I would
Yeah.
like to really dig deep and see where my genes have been. I like to fantasize about that. I mean, there aren't really. I mean, the farther back you go, there really aren't that many humans in
No.
terms of where you can go. I mean, Adam and Eve is like there's one Adam and like four Eves. I think, or something along those lines.
Right.
That's crazy. The lineage where we've been as a people. I mean, it's like one little tiny place in Africa. It's really magical.
Recently, they've been talking about some people having sprouted up in somewhere in Europe. They were saying that it's possible that they were like a different, I don't know, a different tribe of not Neanderthals, but whatever preceded them. So I guess it's up for debate now. But I think they're saying there were three Adams, there were three males who fathered most of our modern population.
That's the interesting part of this debate is that really the chicken or the egg portion of it. I mean, there does have to be a beginning genetically, right? I mean, I'm morphing anyway. The traits have to begin someplace. Somebody has to have them. I mean, granted, we did start from some kind of primordial ooze,
Right.
and the traits have to develop in terms of like the sugar collection or whatever, the caloric collection into something else. I mean, I guess at one point we all are something different. it's it's fascinating. genetics and how they
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, I always think about that Star Trek episode where Q showed Captain Picard that he was responsible for eliminating the entire human race because he had all three stages of the Enterprise throughout three different points in history, and somehow the coalescent energy stopped the primordial ooze from synthesizing proteins.
Here, let me date you. Did you see that originally aired on UPN, or did you see it in reruns for the first time?
No, I saw it originally when I was a kid, and then it kind of went out of sight, out of mind. And then a few years ago, I decided to buy the box set because it had like special features and stuff. And then when I
Oh,
watched all the episodes again, I realized how much of Star Trek had actually seeped into my subconscious.
right.
And I didn't even remember that that was the season finale. I was thinking that that was just some random episode, but it had all built up to then, which was really great because Star Trek TNG was one of the few series where they actually tied the end into the beginning, and it made sense. Because a lot of shows they kind of, I don't know, I guess they get different writers, and over the years they kind of forget where they started, and then the end
Hmm.
doesn't really tie up with the beginning. But TNG, man, that's my show right there.
Yeah, I loved it too. And it's another one of those cases where it's got a horrible name, right? I mean, they didn't really think.
Yeah, right. The next
Star
generation.
Trek is great, but the next generation, come on. At the end of the day, it's like, oh man, for a great show, it could have had a better title. What do you think of this Discovery that's been on TV for like 5 or 6 weeks now? Not
Oh,
talking about the CBS political nightmare of, hey, you could buy no commercials and there's commercials or whatever, but just the show itself. Do you have any opinions?
no, I wasn't even aware of it. I'm not.
What?
Yeah, I'm not too big into watching TV.
Oh no, I cut cable a long time ago, but there's ways around it. But
Oh, for
not
sure.
watching Star Trek at all? No
No.
kidding. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you're not wasting your time. So what do you do with your time? You're just creating art and writing?
Yeah, for the most part.
Well, you do some good art, man. Where do you get your
Thanks. All
influences
right. I
art?
thought my art was terrible.
What makes you think your art is terrible?
Well, I mean, I can't really like. I'm incapable of drawing what I want to draw, and when it comes to painting, I don't really have a command over the brush. The only thing that I think that I'm decent at is like the interplay between colors and shapes. But
Isn't palette a big thing in art, though, in terms of being able to get those colors playing off each other?
I believe that that is the case. But I've tried my hand at like more realistic art, and that just does not work out for me. So I have to go for the abstract
Where
venue,
did
but that's okay.
you get uh, an education in art, or are you all self-taught?
No, I'm all self-taught. My education is actually in computer sciences.
Is that where are you working in computer science?
No, I'm not.
In terms of your art, what do you like best? The computer stuff, the hand stuff, or the writing stuff?
The writing stuff is uh, probably my favorite because it requires a kind of introspective perception that I don't really exhibit in my day-to-day life. For the most part, whenever I'm either hanging out with friends or, yeah, I play a lot of video games.
Hmm.
So I don't really delve too deeply into my own thoughts and emotions. But when I shut all that off, and I sit down in front of the computer in order to write something out, suddenly it's my dreams and aspirations. It's my fears and my pleasures and, secret desires that I introduce other characters to live out those aspects, and then I give it to the audience.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I discovered you, I think, by digging, right? I mean, you're pretty prolific in terms of your science fiction and horror story. You're like all over the place, right? I mean, you're published Clark's World and Asimov and Tor. Am I right in terms of that?
I got to be honest with you, I really don't even know where all I'm at.
Uh, I know where it was. You are on
TallTell
TallTell
TV.
TV. Yep,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
Chris is a
exactly
great
where I
guy.
found you.
Yeah, I
Chris is
found
an
Chris
awesome dude.
through. I think I found Chris through Twitter. I think he had. I think maybe he had just like begun to advertise his YouTube channel, and I'm always looking for new connections and
Uh-huh.
like in all realms of entertainment, be it music, be it production, direction, acting, voiceover acting, character development for video games or animation or anything. I'm always trying to build this real big community between independent developers of any form of media, really.
Hmm.
So when I found Chris and he was looking to build something, I could tell right away that he was serious, and that's what I like. I
Yeah.
like people who are willing
He's
to
real
put in
serious too.
the
He takes his
yeah,
projects so professionally. And I have to apologize for not preparing myself. It's the end of the month too, so I'm like working on 5 or 6 different stories and
sure,
trying to get them ready to be sent out. And it's like I'm so tired. I
right.
was like, oh, I've got a podcast at 1 o'clock. I've got to read and get ready for it. I'm like, oh my god, I've got to
Well, it's
finish
fine,
editing
man.
this
I'm
story. I
super
worked
laid
right
back.
up until 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
that. I'm always super laid back though. I mean, life is too short to stress out.
Yeah, that's the floor. Are you on the beach down there?
No, but I'm not too far. I mean, like a 45-minute ride will get me out to like Clearwater.
Oh, okay, you're down near Clearwater.
Yeah.
That's a harsh beach though.
Yeah, I know, because it's really in the Gulf. It's not like the beach. Like if I really wanted to go to the beach, I'd drive 3 hours all the way across the state over to like Vero Beach or something. That's a nice beach.
Yeah, that's a real nice beach. Dunedin or Denellen, I think it's Denellen with the
Denellen.
Spanish fort. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful beach. Clearwater's harsh because of the crowd that kind of develops at night. I remember there being, the traffic, the
Hmm.
lowriders or whatever, they just cruise around and a bunch of fights. When I was a kid anyway, there'd be a bunch of fights and a bunch of people that, they just wear the cologne and they hang out at night.
I've
It's really
probably been
funny.
guilty of some of that though.
Oh, really? Yeah, I was guilty of it too. I'm not saying I wasn't.
Hmm.
As a kid, you try to be where the action is. I mean, I was hanging out in front of the movie theater too, and doing what you shouldn't do.
Right. That's the only way to
As,
impress the girls.
exactly. That's where the girls were. That's where you tried to be as well.
Right.
But as a father now, I'm thinking about where I don't want my son to be.
Oh yeah. I guess
I'm
that's
like,
different. How many kids do you have?
two. They're young though. They're only 2.5. They're twins, boy and a girl.
Yeah. You like being a dad though?
Oh man, sometimes it's the worst thing I've ever done.
I'm afraid I can't empathize. I'm not one for kids.
No, do you have any children?
No, no, no.
No plans of going into the future. You're going to stay away from it.
Absolutely.
But the way my son treated me yesterday, I would warn you off of it. He was, he was all about screaming whenever he possibly could. When we're together, he's cool. But my wife is here. He is all about being in her arms at all times, and he
Right.
wants nothing to do with me. So he will fight me to get to her and kicking me and punching me and scratching at me. And it's like, oh, dude, you got to stop.
Right. Well, it's probably the Italian in him. I think most Italians probably want their mom.
Exactly. And my family name comes down from Sicily too. So you have that hot-blooded Sicilian anger flowing through him as well. Oh man. What kind of video games you like?
Mostly, probably into classic Nintendo games. I
Oh,
tend to gravitate towards the RPGs. I don't know if you saw on the website, but I started doing video game reviews through Vocal Media, just to try and get more exposure for one, because I'm kind of like opening myself to a fan base I don't normally reach for one,
mhm.
and then two, Vocal Media invited me to write for them, so I took them up on their offer because
That's interesting. How'd that happen?
they just sent me an email and I checked them out and they look good, so I figured, what the hell.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the name of the game nowadays is kind of getting yourself out there as many different directions as it possibly can.
Absolutely.
Do you find it tough to kind of write reviews for things that you love so much?
No, not really. For the most part, I'm even because like I'll write reviews for a game I don't even like. What I do with my reviews is I try to keep them as light and comical as possible. I've always been a big fan of AVGN, and the nerd character, but I don't want to imitate him because he's the original. So rather than being like an angry reviewer, I try to be a more comical reviewer. Um, so like I'll play a game and then maybe weeks later I'll decide to write the review on it. So like I'll run back through it and snap a couple of pictures and then like I'll write the review out and then like I'll read it out loud and see how it strikes my ear and then I'll mold it and then I'll go ahead and release it. But it's really kind of easy. It's actually probably one of the easier things I've ever had to do because I mean, all the material is already there, kind of, so
Hmm.
to speak. I don't
Somebody
really
else
have
has
to
already
come
written
up
the game. Somebody else has already made the game. You've just got to enjoy playing the game.
right or hate playing the game because I have one list. It's like 10 Nintendo games you don't need to play, and like I just like really make fun of how bad the games are. But they're not even games that like make you upset. They're just games that like aren't worth playing. So I just like ridicule either the graphics the stiff controls or something, and I just try to make it entertaining.
It's
But
it's
the
very interesting thinking about
Yeah,
local media too, because that's kind of a failing situation as well, isn't it? With the passing generations, like our parents' generation and our grandparents, as they slowly, pass away, macabre, but when they slowly, go away, that media will turn into something that's no longer there and functioning.
right. Yeah, there's no telling what's gonna evolve in the future.
Yeah, they're reaching out for that younger generation with that type of article writing.
Yeah,
And
and
our
I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things I try sometimes, like, I'll be approached either on Quora or Twitter or whatever, and people will ask me, how I got into writing or whatever's going on. And one of the things that I like to tell people is that the what you need to consider is that whatever you're writing, you're not writing for the people of today. Like, if I'm writing a fantasy story that's for an adult, I'm not writing for the adults of today. I'm writing for the people who will become an adult in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, because it's
very
going to take that
interesting.
long for it to become
Yeah.
prolific, for it to be ubiquitous.
Hmm.
So I try to keep that in mind. And, like, for some people who want to write, like, I grew up in the age of, like, R.L.
I've
Stein.
never actually thought that way while I was writing a story, though.
Oh,
Or in
really?
fact, like, yeah, I've never thought. I don't think of anything other than how to write, how to finish the story that I'm writing. I'm just trying to put one foot in front of the other and not fall down.
Yeah. Well, that's important. That's important while you're actually writing. But I guess once the story is down, once you start to think about releasing it, then it's important to consider for whom you're releasing. Like, your target audience is really your it's your market, it's your goal.
That's definitely true, because there have been so many times I've picked up a book from a used bookstore, and you're leafing through it and dust is flying all over the place and the pages are barely holding together, and you bring it home and you're discovering this author that's been dead for 10 years, and
Hmm.
they've got a collection of 50 novels out there that you're going to have the enjoyment of reading through.
Yeah.
That's totally true. You're going to totally delve into their work and discover something magnificent. um, they didn't plan on you discovering it, and they're going to be around for a very long time. Dead. Shakespeare is another great example, and he's been dead for what, 600 years,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure he was barely holding it together while he was alive.
Right. Yeah,
Or
I always
writing.
bring up H.P. Lovecraft because I think he died destitute. Like, he was
What a
old.
great example. And the dude was eating chickpeas out of cans for most of his
Yeah.
career,
Right.
barely holding it together. I mean,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, these are great examples of that. And I mean, do you think our homeboy down in St. Petersburg was thinking the same way, Dolly? He probably wasn't thinking about next generations. I mean, the guy was so crazy or drunk or high or whatever the hell his deal was, painting those monolithic paintings that are on the wall down there.
Yeah. I
I
gotta
wonder if
say,
he was
some of
thinking generationally
some of those people live so in the moment that
in the
they can't
moment.
see. Yeah, they can't see anything
Yeah.
beyond what's happening right then and there. And I think that's great for creativity. But
Right?
if you're really trying to make a living as any kind of an artist, I think, be it an actor or a writer or a painter or whatever, I think, from a business perspective, it's really important to be able to look objectively and remove yourself from that moment and look ahead, because you got to look at trends. You got to look at the market, you got to look at culture, you got to look at development, because the things that are things that are relevant today are not going to be relevant 20 years from now. And I like to tell people, because when I was growing up, I used to watch Cheers. And Cheers was geared towards ages 18 through 40. But if you ran
Yeah.
Cheers today, only the people who grew up on it are going to get it. It's like those references aren't going to work
Maybe.
for
Because look at
people.
I Love Lucy, though, too. That's another
Oh my
thing that,
God. Yeah.
right? I mean, that's a generational thing that maybe
Right.
it's gone away a little bit, but I mean, that caught people too. It was always on TV, though. And it's a different world.
Yeah.
It was always on TV. It was always in reruns. What was it, 1950s? It was one of the first things on 3 channels or 2 channels or 1 channel, whatever it was. But I mean, it was constantly popular. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard because people do spend a lot of their time. I mean, your example is perfect for like Wall Street bankers. They're constantly crunching numbers, right? Trying to pull the thing out of the ether that's going to be popular tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
another thing that popped in my mind is J.K. Rowling, right? I mean, this woman wrote this 300-page novel, and she's shopping it around to all these people that and said, no, that's not what we're looking for. And they're publishing, the reality TV stars memoirs that's not going to sell either. And some random person at Scholastic said, hey, what, we'll buy it. And she's a
Yeah.
billionaire. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, she didn't know. She wrote something from the heart. The person
Exactly.
at Scholastic said, I got to buy something. I'll just buy this person's thing. And the other people are like, I got to buy something. I'm going to buy this reality TV stars bullshit. You know, I mean, it's like nobody knows anything.
No, and the
Well, like,
publishers are the worst, because if you look at music, the music industry changes radically every 10 to 15 years. If you look at television shows, they change radically every 10 to 15 years. But the
yeah,
publishers seem to be stuck in like some kind of dinosaur mentality, which is good for people like me, for people like you, for the independent people, because they're creating something important, something that means something to them and their fans. And then the only struggle is to get it out there. But I don't know, man. I think these publishers, I think in the next 10 years, 20 years, I think a lot of these big publishers are going to be coming up with their own independent presses in order to try and pick up on the market. Because even right now, and they'll never admit to it, but even right now, they're on Amazon, they're on Barnes and Nobles, and they're looking for independent writers who are releasing these niche genres and are racking up fans. And then they'll approach them and say, "Hey, listen, and it happened to Christopher Paolini, the guy who wrote Aragon. I mean, he was in high school and he was just releasing it to his blog, and everybody loved it, so he released it to
yeah.
Amazon for
Same
like
thing happened to the
10
guy
cents."
who wrote The Martian too, right? I mean, he wrote, a really fantastic short story called The Egg. Have you
Mhm.
read The Egg?
I have not.
Oh my God, dude. When I'd recommend you Google it, The Egg
Okay.
by what's the guy's name? Andy Weir. It's a
Okay.
beautiful piece of fiction. It's like 800 words. It's really easy to read. But he got popular. He popped. 30,000 people know him. It got translated into like 25 languages or whatever it is.
Yeah. Wow.
And he had a following, right? People started coming to his website. He has nothing else. I mean, he has crap fiction otherwise. And people are starting to comment on these chapters that he started to publish on his website called The Martian. And they started participating in him writing this novel. And next thing you know, he's being produced by who? The guy who did Alien. Uh,
Oh, Ridley Scott?
Ridley Scott. I mean, he made a movie. He's making another movies. He's famous now because of that one short story. You never know.
Yeah.
Now I lost my train of thought though. I don't know what I was
That's
mentioning.
okay.
Read The Egg though. I mean, The Egg
I
is
will.
beautiful.
I
As a
absolutely
short,
will.
as a short fiction author, I highly recommend it. What are you working on? And, no, actually, that's not what I wanted to ask. In terms of games too, they're kind of fossilized as well.
Oh
They're
yeah.
not
Yeah, I
really,
write
they're
about
not
that in
really
my
changing.
reviews too. Like I don't think I've enjoyed a game that's come out since 2011.
Which
And
was that was
um,
Skyrim, wasn't it?
Skyrim was the big one, and I still enjoy Skyrim, although I have to say that Oblivion was better. But I found a couple of games that came out around the same time. Like Tales of Vesperia was really good, and they came out in 2011. And then I found Record of Agrest War Zero, which came out in 2011. Um, and it's tough to find good games that have come out since then. And
Yeah,
there's a real big online presence, which is fine. I get it. That's the
that's
market
dying
right
too
now,
though. Even
and
WoW is kind of
yeah, it's dying
dying
too.
out.
And a lot of the independent people are going back to the basics, to true RPGs, or now they call them JRPGs. But a lot of people are going
Which
back
stands for what?
to the Japanese Japanese role playing game.
See, that's your style. I noticed that in your
That is
art.
my
You
style.
like
Yeah,
that.
those are the ones that I prefer.
Do you like manga and what's that other term?
I'm
Manga
not
and
I'm not a big anime fan. I'm not a
anime.
big anime fan, but I do enjoy it. I mean, when I was a kid, I watched Dragon Ball Z. It's definitely not my favorite. But like when I was real little, I used to go to Blockbuster. You remember Blockbuster? I don't know why not.
Yeah,
But I used to go to
I follow
Blockbuster.
the last Blockbuster Twitter account. It's hilarious.
But I used to go to Blockbuster on the weekend, and I'd rent movies out of their anime section. But the first movie I think that I saw was Akira, and I think
Yeah.
Akira is still great. So like I like some of the older anime that came out, I guess in like the 70s and 80s. So Akira and Fist of the North Star, Dagger of Kamui. Those were the movies that started me on anime. Insofar as anime shows go, I never really got too much into them. Ghost
I can't get
Files
into anime
is
at
good.
all. I think there's something wrong with my brain. I cannot get into it. I want to. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of mythology and lore there that I would love to parse out and, take apart and just like dig into a little bit. I just cannot get into the style at all. Just
It's
do
a
not.
totally different culture is what it is,
Yeah.
and I'm a
Is it
huge fan of the Japanese culture. I took karate on and off my whole
okay?
life, and I've really been into like Eastern esoteric practices and everything. So I've always kind of had a mentality for that kind of stuff. And so if you can remove yourself from like American or European culture and sink yourself into the Japanese culture, I think you can be more appreciative of anime. But I mean, if it's not for you, it's not for you. Not
I
everything
really
is going
like
to be for you.
ramen noodles. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
No, but I just cannot get into it at all, unfortunately. And the only anime that I really have ever enjoyed is Grave of Fireflies. I just think that's the most beautiful movie,
Oh,
and I
I've
just think it's cinema. Have you never seen it?
never even heard of it.
It's about two little kids during the bombing of Hiroshima or Nagasaki. I can't remember which one, but it's devastating.
What's it called?
Absolutely. Grave of Fireflies.
It sounds familiar. I wonder if maybe I
Yeah,
saw it at one point that just kind
you
of
had to.
overlooked it.
If you're an anime fan, I would be very surprised if you missed it or skipped over it.
Yeah.
It's one of those just amazing films. I don't even know anything about the director or the writer, but just watching it was a blow to the gut. I mean, there's a scene near the end where they're starving and eating rocks, basically.
Wow.
Oh man, cartoons do not make me cry, and I was blubbering at
Yeah.
the end of that movie. It was hard hitting stuff. Um, Tell me about your writing. Tell me about
Um,
where. I mean, are you pulling stuff from RPGs
that's
and
tough. That's tough
mangas?
to answer, but I'm gonna try to do my best here. If you can hang in with me. Um, I had tried my hand at writing before a long time ago. I used to play Dungeons and Dragons on the weekend with my friends,
Hell yeah.
and
Are you DMing or just playing?
I used to just play. I did not really want to be the DM because it looked like too much responsibility, and I'm the kind of person that tends to get hung up on details,
Yeah.
and it was just more
I couldn't find
relaxing.
anybody to play with. I would love to
Yeah,
DM, but I couldn't find anybody like that was cool enough to say, "All right, well, we'll be nice enough to let you be a DM."
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I used to play with these guys, and there were just so many really fun adventures that came out of it that I had decided that I was going to write my own adventure, but as a story. And I had like no intentions of being a writer. I had no
Uh-huh.
desires, for publication. I
How
was
old
still
were
like
you?
18. I was 18 and going
18.
to
Okay.
college. And I just decided to write just to see what would come out. And I think I got like 3 pages in and it kind of petered out. And I was like, I don't really care too much. But it was like years later, man. I must have been, well, let's see, I think it was back in like real early 2011. So I must have been like 28 or something.
Hmm.
And I had this disturbing dream, and I'm known for my disturbing dreams, but I had a disturbing dream, and somehow in the dream I had like a dualism where I was aware that I was having the dream, and like
Oh,
part of
that's
my
nice.
conscious mind was like this would make for a really cool story. So when I woke up, I decided that the next day I was going to go ahead and write it down just for the sake of writing it down. And when I did, like it came out okay, and I was actually kind of impressed with what I had accomplished, and it kind of renewed my zest for writing. So I decided from that point on to just write whatever came to mind, whether I finished it or not, or whether it was
There
any
you
good.
go.
I was
That
doing it
is like the
just,
best advice you could ever give
yeah,
anybody. Just
yeah,
finish the damn story.
finish the damn story. Just do it when you're writing it. Just do it for you. If you're gonna go for publication, then of course you got to tailor. You
Oh
got to
man,
edit.
you got to
You got
work
to
at it.
edit for
Yeah.
your audience.
Man,
Because
I've
like
had
I tried
dreams
stuff.
where I've woken up going, "Oh my God, that'd make the best comedy script ever," and tried to write it down, and I have no clue what I actually dreamt at the end of the day. It's like,
Oh yeah, it
uh,
happens.
lucid
That happens.
dreaming. My God, man, that's awesome. So
Yeah.
that's like the best thing in the world when you know you're dreaming. Could
Hmm.
you control the dream, or you were just like sitting back going, "This is pretty badass. I'm just gonna watch and see
In
what
that
happens."
particular case, I was just sitting back, but I do have quite a bit of practice with actual lucid dreaming, and even beyond that. I don't
Oh,
know if you
really?
really, yeah, I don't know if you really want to get into that because it's going to be a totally different discussion. And I don't know if you want to do a podcast in the future about it. I'm more than happy to entertain you.
Well, are
But
you
I
talking
could
about
really
like
fill on for
astral
hours.
projection? Oops, I just got excited and knocked something down. Are you talking about astral projection or?
Even beyond that, I actually took an 8-week astral projection course a long time ago. But even beyond astral projection, I don't know if you're familiar with the works of Carlos Castaneda. He was an
No.
anthropologist in the 60s and 70s, and he wrote extensively, and his stuff has been published. And I find it strange because all of his books are bestsellers, and a lot of people who are into spiritualism and like the modern New Age movement, it all stems from Castaneda. Uh, but it seems to me that all the people who have read his work, none of them have practiced his teachings. So I don't know. It baffles me, but I did practice them, and so it opened up a new world for me. But like I said, I could probably talk
Fascinating.
extensively
So
for
well,
hours.
we can talk about it briefly and then get back into your writing. It doesn't matter. I love like going all over the place in these podcasts.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I
Sure.
mean, it's not a
Well,
straight line because straight lines are boring, bro. I
they
like to
are
veer
boring.
all over the place.
Yeah. You need
You never
some
know where
tools.
you're going to end up. Astral projection. When I was a kid, I had a buddy, Nick. He had this tape, and he would bring this tape over. We'd have sleepovers or whatever, and he'd pop it in a tape player, and this thing would like you know, it was a woman's voice, and she would like soothingly say, okay, now relax your whatever the hells and do this thing and that and whatever. And then all of a sudden it'd be this clicking noise and blah, blah, blah. And I've never had an astral projection experience, but it sounds so fantastic to be released from your body and be attached with this silver string. You can do whatever the hell you want. And I always wanted to go to Mars and check it out and do this and that and the other thing.
It's a very strange experience that I try not to take too seriously. I always try to stand back objectively and say maybe this is all in my head, but a
Right.
part of me is convinced that it's real. But I have seen and experienced some things that really go
As a
beyond.
writer, though, even if you're imagining it, if you're experiencing something that you think is vivid enough to capture, why not just say it's real enough to write about, right? I mean,
Absolutely. If it's real to you, then it's real to you, and that's really all that matters.
tell me about what some of the experiences or an experience that you think was interesting enough to call real, or I'll let you.
Well, one of the most simple things that I do is during an out of body experience or an astral projection. I'm always fairly aware of my surroundings. So before I fall asleep, before I go to bed, I spend some time with the lights on, staring at my room. So I'm familiar with my room to the point to where if I close my eyes, I can envision my room. Then once I start to feel drowsy, I'll turn the light off. I have a little remote control to shut the light off, so I don't actually have to get up and disturb myself. So I'll
Mhm.
shut the light off, and then I'll continue to visualize my room up to the point to where I feel myself falling asleep without being asleep. And then there's a disconnect between myself and my body. And then all I can describe is that I feel like a detuned radio. Like if you're messing with the knobs on a radio and you're going between stations and you hear that weird white noise, like
Mhm.
I feel that white noise, and then I physically feel myself being ripped apart from myself, and then I see my room as it is in the dark, of course. So it's hard for me to say that it isn't real. I'm looking at my room from a different perspective while I'm well aware that my body's lying down asleep, and then I'll just move off from my room and I'll move around outside and look around. Unfortunately, there must be like some form of concentration or something that you have to practice, because I can usually only get like a few minutes before it becomes some fantastical dream where it's like I'm like floating through space through different planets or whatever. So again, I can't say that it's real or that it's not real, but if I go far enough, it tends to defy human reason. So I'm willing to admit that it could very well be my imagination, but it feels real to me.
But within like the first few moments, it's real enough. It's based in reality. You could
It
see
is.
the actual room. You could see your actual house and the actual surroundings of your home or something along those
Yes, I
lines.
can see the dresser, and then I can move through the wall because I have no physicality, and I can see my porch, and I can move beyond that, and I can turn around and I can see the plants as they're being blown by the wind. So it's hard to imagine that that's fake.
Huh. Wow. So the fantastical. So are you able, is this like a lucid dream type environment where you're able to interact with the fantastical?
It's really more of like an observational thing. I don't really even
Interesting.
know that there's like enough of me to interact. At that point, I'm really just like an amorphous, awareness that just envisions whatever's going on. So it's not really like I have control over the objects that are there. It's really more about sensations and I don't know, just visual, visual experiences or auditory
Uh,
experiences.
When did you start doing this?
Well, I've always had this strange, like even when I was a kid, I used to like wake up and be stuck in my body asleep and like scared and like not be able
Yeah,
to wake up.
that's
And then
interesting.
I had talked to a
What's that
friend
called?
about it.
Sleep paralysis, right?
That's what they call it, but it's, if you
Yeah.
ask me, it's the beginning stages of astral projection. It's like your second consciousness is becoming aware, and it's not connected to your body. So then it's just a matter of volitionally moving away from yourself. But I
Hmm.
had talked to a friend of mine about it because it was really bothering me, and I was just curious if he knew anything about it. And he's the one who turned me on to astral projection. So he gave me a book about it, and I read through it. And then after that, I started um, just trying to let it develop on its own. Like so, whenever I wouldn't try to make it happen, but whenever I would wake up in a situation, I would just try to remain calm. And then eventually I was able to somehow move away from myself. But like I can't really describe how it's done.
Hmm.
It's really just a matter of, I guess, intending. Like you got to want it bad enough, and you got to let it happen.
So two questions. One, shadow people. They always
Shadow.
come with sleep paralysis or
I have
alien
I
abductions.
have I have never run into shadow people, but I have my own theory, which stems from Carlos Castaneda's works, and that involves inorganic beings, which are awarenesses that aren't human. Um, And I believe that the human mind, the human inventory, tries to turn something unfamiliar into something familiar in order to understand it. So I believe that these aliens or these shadow people or whatever it is that people see, um, your comprehension is trying to turn something that you don't know into something familiar. So
Hmm.
you'll see an awareness as a person because people is all you know.
So I've read that people get attacked like by things too. Like you release your physical shell. I don't know if it's called a shell, like the protective outer laying of your soul or something like. I don't know if you even know if you call it a soul. You get you are vulnerable to these beings or whatever.
Yes, I have been tagged before by what I can only describe as balls of energy,
Mm,
and I don't really know how to describe it except that like it feels like getting shocked and hit at the same time. It's for a moment it's excessively painful, and then I wake up and everything is fine.
everything's
But
fine.
like that second that it happens, it's pretty bad. But I have some, I don't know if you call them protections or whatever, but I have a few like talismans that I focus on so that when I go to sleep, I don't worry about it. And they've it seems to me they've protected me so far. But I can't really say that it's the talismans that protect me so much as my intention being focused on the talismans for protection. So it's kind of like,
What do you think would happen if you weren't protected?
I don't know. Frankly,
Right?
I don't care. I don't know or care. Life is too short to go around with your head buried. It's like being afraid that everybody in the street has a gun and is going to shoot you. Like I'm not worried about it.
Oh man, I worry about that. I was once. I think this is after the horribleness that happened in Nice. I was so affected by that, and I was walking through Columbus Circle. I think I was picking up something from St. Luke's, or I don't know what I was doing in that area, but I was gonna walk to the park just to clear my head or whatever, and I was walking towards Columbus Circle, and I just had this thing hit me, like this gigantic "don't go there." It's always crowded. There's always a lot of traffic. There's always a lot of people, and I just had this moment of panic, like "don't go." Like, like the terrorists won that day in terms of like freaking me out.
Yeah.
I had no desire to go there. So I'm always thinking about it. But then again, I live in New York. It's like I expect shit to happen all the time. It never does, but you always expect it to in
Right.
terms
Well,
of,
to be aware and to be to want to protect yourself is one thing. I mean, I definitely don't go around with blinders on. Like if I'm walking down the street, if I'm going somewhere unfamiliar, I'm not going to have my face buried in my cell phone. I'm going to be aware of my surroundings. But I don't have the constant fear of being attacked. I don't fear for my safety or well-being. I'm just intelligent enough to be aware of myself.
yeah. Did you grow up religious at all? Being Italian, I would imagine
Yeah, I mean,
you're
I guess I
Catholic.
I grew up Roman Catholic, and it's
Yeah.
funny you bring that up. Like I was actually born left-handed, and my mom didn't approve of that, so she forced me to be right-handed.
Ouch. Are you
And
ambidextrous now? Can you
I
use both hands?
yeah, I can.
Perfectly same as both, or is one weaker than the other? One better than the
I
other?
would actually say that my left hand is stronger than my right, but I have more control over my right because I write with my right hand, which makes
Uh,
more sense. Like it doesn't make sense to push the pen across the paper when you can drag it. So I write right-handed, but a lot of other things, like I can throw a ball with both hands equally. Although
She
I
kind
could
of did you a
probably
favor though, didn't she, in terms of the way desks are situated and the way paper there's certain things that being right-handed just kind of
it's
benefits you in our society.
it's more practical.
But being able to work both hands is
Is
awesome.
even more practical.
Yeah. I can work both hands. Not great, but I can work both hands. I wasn't forced. I forced myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you were raised Roman Catholic, you were baptized, first
Yep.
communion, catechism, all that happy bull poo. And you're now, what is it called? Not metaphysical, but in terms of the astral projection, what is
I
that way
I
of
just I just call myself agnostic.
agnostic?
Yeah.
So I mean, what is it that you're playing with? I mean, you're obviously questioning your place in the universe, but you've got this idea of this thing inside yourself that you can release. What does that mean to you?
I just believe that I'm focusing on an aspect of awareness that most people aren't, that most people don't even realize they have access to. Like we're infinitely more complex than we believe we are. And if you look at the nature of things, everything boils down to energy. That's the most basic factor in anything, whether it's a planet, whether it's a sun, whether it's an atom, it all boils down to energy. And if we're comprised of atoms, then we're comprised of energy. And if we can go back to our energy as the source of things, then I think we can relate ourselves to a world of energy, and that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to answer any questions. I'm just trying to live my life, and I
Answer
try to do that.
questions though, but you have to be developing questions,
Hmm?
right? You have to be developing questions with your experiments with astral projection.
I would say that I developed blocks of ideas, but I don't even know that I could really mold them into words.
It's complicated, huh? I mean, when I had my children, I would sit there and just look at them and wonder about that moment, that they came from, and that eventually I'm working my way towards. It's pretty freaky. And I've never separated myself from my body and looked at my room from anything, even at a centimeter. So I don't know. I mean, how much has this affected your writing? I mean, have you explored it in any way?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I wrote a novella called Other Side, which is kind of a fictional rendition of some of my experiences.
It's a death fantasy.
Um, no,
And
not really. It's supposed to be a voodoo fantasy. I did quite a bit of research into voodoo, not because I believe in voodoo practices or anything, but that was just the element that I wanted the story to revolve around.
mhm.
Uh, but
Why
it's
voodoo? Like zombies, or voodoo in terms of witch doctors, or
yeah, more like witch doctors is how it starts off. With hexes and curses and
that's Haiti,
spiritual.
which is very Roman Catholic too, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's interesting that you would go in that direction. Um, so what kind of questions were you trying to achieve answers for in that story?
I don't know. That's really a tough question to answer. When
Without
I
having
wrote
me
it,
read it either, so I'm kind of like,
yeah.
artist, explain your art.
When I wrote it, when I wrote it, I was really still experimenting with writing, but I wanted to write something that was a little bit closer to my heart and to my experiences at the time.
Hmm.
And at that time, I was doing a lot of dreaming practices. So I wanted to focus on a world that has no physicality, but to just describe waves of energy and auditory hallucinations doesn't work. So I needed something more concrete. So I guess I don't know. It's really tough to explain.
I hate this elevator spiel thing that people talk about all the time. You're in an elevator and you see somebody that you could potentially sell your novel to, and you got to tell them within the number of floors they have what your novel is about. And I fail miserably at it. I can't tell you what my
Yeah.
novel that I publish on Amazon's about. Like, I don't know. It's about a
Right.
dude.
Right.
Eat some stuff.
The
Goodbye.
the
Have a
novel
good day.
it's I mean the novel itself is a it's crazy. The novel itself though is about a kind of like a loser frat boy who falls into these voodoo practices because he's on the street trying to buy alcohol and he sees this guy get shot, and then when the dead guy he faints, and then when he comes to, the dead guy starts talking to him, and
Mhm.
he can't believe it, and then he faints again, and he wakes up in this old woman's house who turns out to be the dead guy's grandmother, and she kind of explains to him that when the dead guy died, he passed on his power to this kid. So she starts teaching him, these practices that he's required to understand in order to now survive in
Mhm.
this world of voodoo. But it's not really a world of voodoo. I just borrowed some elements, because there's a lot of herbal practices in voodoo, they implement like mint leaves and anointing oils and stuff like that. So I did my research on the more physical aspects of voodoo, like the medicinal aspects, and less on the curses and the zombies. I mean, it's not like Serpent in the Rainbow or anything. Um, and then I really try to get into a more spiritual venue. And I borrowed some elements from Native American lore with totem animals and stuff like that. So it's really kind of a big random mishmash about several different spiritual practices that have affected my life over the course of the years.
What did you do with it once you wrote it?
Well, the first thing I did with it was I tried to land a publisher, because at the time I had no conception of what the publishing world was, and at the time it was only a short story, and nobody even talked to me. So then I started trying to find out what publishing was about, and I still didn't understand. So I shopped it to a couple of POD companies, print on demand companies, and of course they'll jump on anything. I mean, you could write
Anything. Yeah.
14 sentences all misspelled with no punctuation, and they'll jump on it because they'll take your money. So I went to the
Oh,
POD
it's the
company.
best thing I've ever read. Give me
Yeah, right.
$50 and I'll publish it right now.
Exactly. That's how it started out. But then I dropped them, and I actually had it picked up by a small press out of California, and they helped me develop it a little bit more. But then I had a bunch of problems with them too. Eventually, they got bought out by another company, and supposedly they lost my contract. So I just told them straight up, if you don't have my contracts, then my stuff is mine. So I actually rewrote it and re-released it on my own, and it's done way better on my own than it ever did through them.
It's interesting. Where did you publish at? Amazon?
Actually, I started publishing stuff on Amazon, and I don't like them either, man. I tell people Amazon will steal from you 10 to 12 cents at a time. Don't think they don't. So I ended up pulling all my e-copies from Amazon. I still develop print copies through CreateSpace, so they're available on Amazon. But the e-copies I publish through Smashwords, and if you use their premium catalog, they become available everywhere. So that's probably why you said you found me published on these other sites, is
Oh
because
no, I saw you.
Smashwords.
Actually, I know you through Chris Herron. That's where I
Oh,
met
okay,
you.
well,
That's where I saw you actually.
gotcha. Well,
I
I
got
look into
he did one of my stories too. One
yeah.
gnome, two gnome, three gnome gone, and I've
Oh,
been
okay.
going through some of his people and just reaching out because I
Yeah.
love artists. I mean, I love writers, and this podcast is basically a way to reach out and figure out, you know, who are we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk. Let's figure it out, man, because we can't do this alone anymore.
No, absolutely not. And we all know something that somebody else doesn't, and that's the
Yeah,
important thing.
yeah, that's a really great point. Yeah, you're going through the same struggles a lot of people go through, and the important thing is that you're educating yourself, right? I mean, the important thing is that you're, learning what to do
Constantly.
constantly. And I think your first impulse was correct. I mean, sending that thing out there to magazines like Asimov and Clark's World and places like that, it's a great way to go.
Yeah.
Um, are you doing that more now, or are you just giving up on maybe even getting published at all with any of your work?
Um, I will never give up on getting published because traditional publishing will open up doors that independent
Yeah.
publishing won't. So I will never actually give up on it. But what I will say is that as of recently, the stories that I've written are designed for self-publishing or independent publishing.
What makes you
Um,
say that? Because I mean, I've been butting my head against. I have not. I got my degree in creative writing, so obviously writing is what I do, and I can't do anything else because I hate hourly work, and that's basically all I'm qualified to do: hourly work or get mad. I'm good at getting mad, and I'm good at making hourly work.
Well, it's a start. It's a start. We all got to do something to get to where we want to go. And the important thing is to keep your sight on your goal and to do everything that's required to get there and to cut out
Yeah.
everything that's not going to get you there. Um, but I would say that my stories right now are very niche based. Like when I write a fantasy genre, it's really really fantasy. It's not generalized for a mass market. So I can understand why literary agents might be opposed to it. Like when I started writing the Dragon of Time series, I was shopping for agents at the time, and to
Mm.
my surprise, a lot of them responded. And as you probably know, if they're not interested, they're not going to talk to you at all. But a lot of them told me that they really appreciated the story and the writing, but that they
Mm.
didn't feel it was marketable. And I understand that because
Well,
it's
tell
not
me about the
written.
Dragon of Time series, because honestly, you give me the title and I'm interested.
Okay.
And that's probably where they're coming from too. It's like, wow, the Dragon of Time series. That sounds freaking phenomenal. Let's figure out what the hell this is before I say no.
Yeah, yeah, right. So right now I'm working on the third book. The working title is Dragons Falling, but it's a world in which
Especially
ages.
now with Game of Thrones. I mean, dragons are
Oh yeah,
gold, right?
everybody loves a good dragon, but these dragons are buttholes. Uh, but ages ago, the dragons ruled over humans, and then through technology and warfare and trying to figure out magic and whatever, the humans defeated the dragons, and so the dragons were dead, and then the humans split up, and they all started following these gods, which they thought helped them to defeat the dragons. Well, I can tell you I don't want to give too much away, but there are fake gods and there are real gods. But the premise is that the dragons aren't dead, and they've been posing as the gods that people follow. So people are at war because the dragons want these people at war, because when they kill each other, the dragons get these souls from people, and they try to use these souls to come back to life. So their bodies are dead, but their spirits aren't. But the Dragon of Time is the creator of all that is, was, and ever will be. So he's like, he's this thing that goes beyond time and beyond different realms of reality, and he sends a portion of himself as a human to one particular reality in order to help the people defeat the dragons once and for all.
Interesting. And that's a novel.
It's a novel, yeah. Two of them are out. The first one is called Gods and Dragons, and the second one is Dragon Slayer. And right now I'm working on Dragons Falling.
And when I look at your website, how come I don't see your novels like front and center?
Um, I guess it depends on how you look at the website, because when I have it up on my computer, I see, the about page is first, and it has I think Other Side is one of the more prominent things that's on there. But I think it also has the Google Plus pages to those series. Like there should be the Google Plus page for the Dragon of Time, and then the one for the Lokian series, and then the one for the Adventures of Larson and Garrett. So it should be front and center. But then the tabs are separated into fantasy and science fiction and video game
I'm
reviews and
looking
all
at
that.
stories by Dennis, right?
Yeah,
I don't see it. About stories by Dennis. I wouldn't even know that you had completed novels.
maybe I have to rethink the way my website looks.
Because I mean, I'm not, obviously trying to make you feel bad or anything, but I'm looking at here, and I think you were short fiction only.
Oh, okay, well that's
Two finished novels. I'm like, I want to. Oh, dude, let's check out the novels,
yeah.
and I
Well,
don't.
I'm not gonna feel bad. I mean, I don't consider myself a web designer, so
I'm
you
not either. You should check out my website. It's like a totem pole of poo, basically. I was like, I do these podcasts like 2 or 3 a week, right? So it's like when you look at my website, all you see was a podcast. Like, dude, I write too. So I've been like I've been bookmarking, or what do you call it? When you put stuff on the top,
yeah,
sticky stuff, so people read things also.
like
And then
pinning it.
I'm pinning it. Thank you. So I've been like removing the longer stuff as well because I don't want to get in trouble when I
Yeah.
submit it to magazines.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up though, because I had no idea. Nobody's ever told me, that like when they go to my website that it's I don't know, not user friendly or whatever. So I'm glad that you're telling me because it gives me an opportunity to to work on something that I don't usually work on. Uh, I would
Who
like
are you
for
who are you hosting with?
Bluehost.
Bluehost. Okay, I was using Bluehost too. I'm quote unquote borrowing software from a friend, and Bluehost was shutting down my website every single day, and I couldn't figure out why. Could not figure out why. Every time I'd put up a podcast, it was like throwing gigabytes, hundreds and hundreds of gigabytes into my website. I could not figure out why it was happening. So I had to quit and go back to WordPress. Man, life. Life in the modern world is like the worst thing ever and the best thing ever at the same time.
Yeah, if you can figure it out, you got it going on. But otherwise, you're left in the muck with everybody else who's trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I know.
Which is why we need this. We need to be talking like this. We got to figure out what's working and what's not.
Yeah, no, because you don't really, I mean, you want to sell your novel, but you don't want to be those people on Twitter either that every single tweet all day long is, buy my novel.
Yeah, I
Hey,
try to tell
guys.
those people too that like they're auto tweeting to everybody else's auto tweets. If all of your friends are independent writers, they're not buying your book, man.
No, they're not. You're not selling to writers. I mean, as cool as you are, and as much as I want to read your stuff, I'm going to read your short fiction, and I'm probably not going to reach into my pocket and buy your novel
Right.
because I've got no money. I'm a writer.
Exactly. We're all starving and we're all reading each other's free short stories.
You know what I'll do? If you want me to, beta read your novel, I'll beta read your novel
Yep.
probably. But that's about as far as I'll get because, again, I'm broke. I have no money. I'm eating chickpeas out of a can, basically. My poor kids are getting the meat and the dairy products so that they grow up big and strong, so they'll be able to support me when I get all feeble or whatever
Yeah.
and have scurvy.
Eat your lemons, you'll be all right.
Oh, lemons.
Or limes, whatever it is.
I think lemons work too. Anything with vitamin C.
Yeah.
No, it's yeah, you're right. In terms of conversation, it's been great. Um, who do you use as an aggregate in terms of you're submitting your short fiction? Where do you find your stuff at?
Well, like I said, I pretty much submit everything through Smashwords and let them handle it. So you can
Oh,
find all my
Smashwords.
yeah, so you can find all my fiction, whether it's the novels or the short fiction or whatever, whether it's free or priced. You can find it, Sony, Nook, iBooks. I've been doing really good on iBooks lately, which I don't know why because I don't ever really advertise. Like even on my website, I don't have a link for people to buy my books on iBooks. So that means that these are just people who happen to stumble across my stuff and want it.
Isn't that
Uh,
funny? I mean, I've
yeah.
heard of Smashwords being really good for some people, and the mystery of it just amazes me. Sometimes it works,
I
sometimes
know
you're
it's
like
crazy.
invisible.
Like some people have, these Facebook author pages and they have like hundreds of thousands of followers and they do really well. And like Facebook never worked for me. And some of these people, they're good at using Reddit, and like it just doesn't work for me. There are some things that work for some people, and some things that work for others. And there's no tried and true formula. It's never A plus B equals C. Like you got to get out there and you got to find a balance between what you enjoy doing and what people enjoy receiving. And it's
I know one person on Reddit that it has worked for him. That's only one.
yeah.
Luna Lovejoy or something like that. It's a guy. He has a feminine sounding name.
Hmm.
Writer prompts, right?
Yeah.
I love writer prompts. They're stupid, but I've gotten so much good fiction out of the prompts. I mean,
Really? See,
oh
those
yeah.
they don't work for me because like I don't care about the prompts, so I'm not going to write about it.
Oh really? They work. I mean, 'cause I write strange stuff anyway. So when I see a prompt, I'm like, oh, how can I take this and go in a very interesting way? So I will take, the prompt and get a 5,000 word story out of it that had nothing really to do with the prompt anymore. But this guy, he'll take the prompt and people are totally all about it. He'll get like 400, 500 words off of it, not words, responses, and he'll get to the front page, and you'll check out his Patreon, and he's making like $3,000 a month. He's on Wattpad with tens of thousands of viewers, and like I hit him up once. I wanted to interview him on the podcast. He's like, dude, I have a personal, I'm very private about my personal life. I will not interview at all. I'm like, oh, I want to find out how you're doing this shit. How are you doing this?
Right. That's the question is, what is this person doing that's working, because we're all trying to figure it out.
Yeah. How are you doing this every single day? The magic trick. What is the magic trick, man? Is it because you were one of the first people on Reddit? Is that what it is? Because maybe he was. Maybe he was the first person on writing prompts that actually did a good prompt. I have no clue. Other people try to duplicate it. He puts on the very bottom of his stories, check me out on Luna Lovegood, his subreddit. People go there. People go to his Patreon. People give him money. It's like,
It's
dude,
inspirational
what?
though, because if he can do it, so can everybody else.
Right? And then you go to Wattpad, because he has a Wattpad. He probably has other things too. And there are people on Wattpad making money as well. I'm like,
Hmm.
ugh. And you read their stuff, it's like, ugh,
Yeah.
really? Ugh, why do
And
people
that's the
like
thing.
you?
Some people are good at marketing. Some people are good at writing. Some people are good at editing. Everybody's good at something different, and that's why these publishing companies exist. Because
Yeah.
the world of publishing a book is not just writing the book. I mean, you need the editor. You need the writer. Obviously, you need the publisher. You need the people to reach markets. You need an advertiser. And like I try to tell people, a lot of times what sells a book is the blurb. But when it comes to publishing companies, that writer didn't write the blurb. J.K. Rowling didn't write the blurb for Harry
No. Or the cover or the art
Potter.
or
No.
the anything. She didn't
Nope.
typeface it. She didn't do any of that. All she did was
Nope.
sit in a coffee shop and write her words.
Right.
I have a really good friend that lives in Yorkshire, Emma Hardcastle. She has written a series, YA series called Pandora. And just recently, she took upon herself to write a novella, 144 printed pages or something like
Yeah.
that. And I'm like, dude, you're going too fast. Slow down. This thing could be a novel or whatever. And she's like, nope, I'm going to do this by December. I'm going to print this thing out. I'm going to have a publishing party and blah, blah, blah. This woman has like, a list of things, objectives that she's going to do every single year. And every single year, she just marks them off. She is everything on that list that you just mentioned. She does
Yeah.
her own cover. She does her own editing. She does this, that, and the other thing. And every single year, she meets her objectives and she makes another list and she meets those objectives. She's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
that's what it's about. As long as you're enjoying your life, and we all operate at different speeds. We all have different priorities. So if that's what's working out for, that's great. And I'm proud of her. And again, it's an inspiration for everybody else, because if one person can make it happen, so can you,
with hard work and dedication.
with hard work and dedication, and maybe a little bit of luck.
Yeah, my wife calls it, obviously the old cliche, lightning in a bottle.
That reminds me of that Key and Peele skit where the dude's actually got lightning in a bottle.
I wish I had actually gotten into that. I've not
Yeah,
watched really any other stuff. A few
there are.
other YouTube clips.
Yeah.
They weren't Dave Chappelle though. They took over for Dave Chappelle though, didn't they?
Mhm. I think they did.
Yeah. Um. So, what are you going to do going forward? What's your plans? What are you working on now?
Like I said, right now I'm working on Dragons Falling, but I'm not rushing it. If I feel like writing, I'll write. If I don't feel like writing, I'm not gonna write. I've always got the video game reviews coming out, and
Are
the
you
more stuff
done with short fiction? Are you just writing on the novel?
You know, I can't really say that I'm done with anything. Like a little while ago, before I even started writing Dragons Falling, I wanted to write a Michael Myers fan fiction, and I got like 7 chapters into it, and then I just didn't feel like doing it anymore, so I
That's
stopped.
interesting.
And that's really what I'm about. Like I'll do whatever I want to do when I want to do it, because that's just the way
Yeah.
that I live my life. And if it works out, great, and if it doesn't, at least I did what I wanted to do.
I had this little
But
tiny tickle to write Spider-Man fan fiction on Wattpad just to see what would
yeah,
happen. Yeah.
yeah. If you got nothing else going on, I recommend
But
you do
that's the
it.
thing. I have 1,000 things going on and have no time. I don't know where
Exactly.
I'd fit it in.
I understand. Yeah. So I
I
guess
know.
that's
When you say it out loud, it's like, this guy wants to write Spider-Man fan fiction. That's the
no, there's nothing
dumbest
wrong with
thing
that. I
ever.
think that's great. I think that's great, especially right now. Spider-Man's pretty big, so
Right?
there's
Did
there's
you
a
see the
there's
movie?
a
Do
market
you do
for
you
it.
go to the movies? Do you like Spider-Man? That movie was
No,
amazing.
no, I'm not a big movie goer.
No, there's I was gonna say Blade Runner 2049 is fantastic if you like the original.
Oh, I love the original. Is the remake worth seeing?
It's not a remake, it's a sequel, it's like a direct sequel.
Is that what it is?
Nope.
No
It's
kidding.
really freaking good, and they did a great job kind of not mimicking. The
Yeah.
director did his own thing, but it's just slow and nicely paced, and it's beautiful. And this dude, what's his name? The guy who's in it. It's the
Harrison Ford.
actor's. What's his name?
Harrison Ford.
No, Harrison Ford is in it at the end. But what's the guy's name? Who's the cop though?
Oh, I don't know.
He's becoming one of my favorite actors. He just does a really great job. I highly recommend it. If you loved Blade Runner, if you thought it was one of your favorite movies in the 80s and you watched it over and over and over again, go see 2049. You're not going to be disappointed. They did a great job with it.
I will. I'll have to
And
check
it's
it
not
out.
a remake, and it's not a redo, and it's definitely, it pays homage to the original one, and they did a great job. It's a love
That's good.
story for Blade Runner.
I will check it out.
Um, Man, we're at an hour.
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate you hanging out with me and talking. I love astral projection. I love the idea of it. I wish I could do it. I wonder if it goes hand in hand with sleep paralysis, though.
It's my belief that sleep paralysis is the initial stage of your subconscious or your second awareness or whatever you want to call it. It's your energetic self is becoming awakened or aware, and it's just a matter of exploring it.
Isn't that a neurological thing, though? Isn't that a possible physical ailment that a person actually has, like sleep paralysis, and a click in the brain when you're sleeping, like the moment before waking up or falling asleep, that some people have and some people don't?
That's really not up to me to answer.
You don't know? I don't know either.
No
I've
idea.
not done any
Not a clue.
research on it.
Not a
I feel
clue.
like I think I've read something once and I can't remember for sure
All
whether
I
it
can
was
say
one
is
way or
that it
the other.
happened when I was a kid, and it doesn't happen now. So I don't know.
Hmm. It's fascinating. I love the subject. I love death fantasies. I love thinking about the universe in terms of the energy, like you said, this whole what the hell is it? I love thinking about what we are in terms of this thing inside of us because you can't pinpoint it. I mean, this me, I don't know you at all, and you have a me too. This
Right.
glowing blah that just sits in the middle of your body and makes you feel all these things, makes you think, makes you want. Maybe monkeys have it. Maybe my dog has it. I know my son and daughter have it. I don't know where it
Oh yeah.
came from. I don't know what happens to it when we die, and we all die. You know, I was reading the book Endurance. I highly recommend that too if you're into space. The Scott Kelly book that just came out. And he said it didn't bother him that he didn't feel anything before he was born. And he says he imagines when he dies, he's probably not going to feel too bad, but he doesn't feel anything after death. So
Yeah. I would imagine
maybe
it's
that's the
beyond
case,
comprehension.
right? Nothing is nothing. It's not
Right.
something. It's not feeling bad that you're dead. So maybe that's something to look forward to. Who knows?
All I know is that I enjoy my life as I live it, and that's enough for me. If everybody else can feel that way, I think the world would be a better place.
Seeking happiness is definitely an adventure, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. 3 questions I asked to sum up the podcast. The number one, it's kind of a workshop in progress. I'm trying to figure out the best way to ask it. Comes off a little rough, but in terms of being an artist, man, you obviously have people who have not achieved 2 novels, who have not gotten on Chris Herron's YouTube channel with a fantastic story that has elicited podcasters trying to get their attention and being on their show. What do you say to people like that who are trying to achieve making something like you?
The short answer is really just, if you have a goal in mind, focus on your goal, prioritize, and don't do anything that isn't going to get you to that end result. So if that means that you need to be on the internet, scouring, Google, and just asking questions like, how do I become a successful writer, then do that. Look it up, read what other people have to say, compare and contrast. Everybody's going to have something different to say. Try it all, find what works for you, find that balance, find something that makes you happy and allows you to be creative, and at the same time guides you towards fans and towards achieving your goals. But whatever you do, don't ever get hung up on your failures, because nobody's ever going to do anything perfectly their
Yeah.
first attempt. That's just not the way the world works.
Or their second, or their
Yeah,
third,
yeah,
or their
just
80th.
you can't.
Nothing is perfect, right? I mean, actually,
Exactly.
if you look at a picture of the moon, it's beautiful because it's imperfect.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, you said this word fan. Do you think of yourself as an entertainer? Do you think of yourself as somebody who wears an entertaining mask, like the happy and the smiling and frowny,
Well, I'm
what is it called, the
entertaining,
theater
if that's
masks?
what you're asking. I think everybody likes me.
Well, no, in terms of your art, though, when you draw a picture or you write a story, or I don't know, when you talk to me on this podcast, do you think that it's your job to entertain? It's always something that I kind of wrestle with as an artist. Am I an entertainer? Because I don't really want to wear the clown makeup. I don't really want to have
Okay.
the fake smile on my face. I want to do something more than that.
Well,
I don't
yes,
want to be Jack Black on the microphone with Tenacious D. I
right.
want to do something more.
The thing is, yes, I do consider myself an entertainer, but I don't take it seriously. So it doesn't matter to me if I'm entertaining or not. I don't know if that makes any
No, it
sense, but that's
does.
my outlook.
That's very interesting. Thank you for that. And my second question is not as hard. What are you reading right now?
Um, Nothing. I'm not reading anything.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Not reading anything.
I'm,
Well,
I'm
that's
gonna
a
go. I'm gonna go read the egg because he told me to read it.
oh, definitely. Highly recommend it. Easy read, 800 words. And my last question, where can we find you on the World Wide Web?
I guess storiesbydennis.com is the way to go.
Mm-hmm. Anywhere else?
Just look up my name on Barnes and Nobles or iBooks or wherever else. I'll be there.
All right, my friend. Excellent conversation. Really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me today.
Of course.
And man, you have a great rest of your day.
I will. You too.
All right, man. Bye.
Thank you.